Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. So we're still live, shooting live at the 2026 Health and Safety Conference at FDSOA. And with us this morning, we've got Dr. Rich Gasaway. He's going to sit down with us for a little bit. Keynote speech yesterday, it was great.
Thank you.
We just wanted to kind of get some individual time with you and maybe pick your brain about some things that are going on in the fire service, or more importantly, that go on in firefighters' brains.
Yeah,
that's right. A lot of these podcasts we've kind of kept to 15 minutes, but I don't think we're going to limit ourselves here. We're just going to let this conversation go and see what that looks like.
Sure.
So, just to start out, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, or tell the viewers a little bit about you, or who you are, or what you do?
Yeah. So I joined the fire service in 1979, right out of high school. After we had a fire at my house, and it's
Really?
like I got the inspiration, and spent 33 years, firefighter, EMT, paramedic, lieutenant, captain, training officer, assistant chief, fire chief. Worked in 3 different organizations. One in my hometown, just outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Then I moved to Akron, Ohio, was a fire chief in a suburb of Akron. Then I moved to Minnesota, where I live now, and was a fire chief in a suburb to Minneapolis and St. Paul, and retired in 2009. Back up 2004, inspired by reading firefighter fatality reports and asking questions about what were they thinking? How could they not see the bad thing coming? How could they apparently in some cases not hear radio traffic and all these things, and the reports weren't really providing the answers to?
Yeah.
So I enrolled in a doctoral program, thinking initially this is a leadership issue.
Right.
Well, then I, wasn't far down the road, and then I come to the realization this isn't a leadership issue. This is a brain issue of what's happening when the brain gets stressed and how it changes and how it affects thinking and decision making. And that led me into neuroscience, and it just became, I got ate up by it. It was just, it consumed me. I turned to a nerd. I mean, my undergrad was in business. It wasn't in science, but holy cow. Then the more I learned, the more I wanted to learn, and the more, and even to this day, I'm ate up on the whole. If you looked at my bookshelf in my office, it's all nerdy brain books, and, the kind of thing that somebody would hope that their dad would never turn into. But here I am, Instead of getting a tie for Christmas, I get a brain book. And so that took 5 years to do while I was working full time, and then I published my findings, and then started submitting proposals to conferences, and it blew up.
Yeah.
I had no idea at the time that I was learning it, that it was going to become so significant that I would have to leave my fire department job to do these presentations and consultations with fire departments, and then eventually industry, but industry didn't come along for like 10 years afterwards. And it has just been such an amazing and enjoyable ride. I've published 7 books now.
Oh, wow.
Just on situational awareness and decision making, and the opportunities to present have just been incredible. Like being here. I mean, I'm not from FDNY or some big city, and thankfully I'm not here to teach my fireground experience with anybody. It's the neuroscience, it's the brainiac stuff. But if from the keynote, it's friendly.
That's right.
It's not trying to impress anybody with technical brain stuff. It's all, I use analogies like building houses and etch-a-sketches and things that, building puzzles, things that make it easy to digest, but yet make those complex issues that we can experience when we're under stress easy for them to know when it's happening to them, so that they can pivot and say, I'm being affected from the stress that's impacting my visual processing or my audible processing, and I'm getting tunnel visioned or task fixated, or these things that can happen without you even realizing it.
Sure. Right.
And then there you are in a bad spot and not even realizing that you were creeping toward that but not because tactically you were doing something wrong, but because your information processing was being affected mostly by stress.
Right. Wow. You were talking about pivoting there. Okay, so if I've seen your presentations many times, I have one of your books. What would you say if someone hasn't seen one of your presentations or read one of your books? What would you say when you are getting that tunnel vision, when somebody, like a practical sense, what would be a way that someone could pivot, like you said, to pull themselves out of that? Because we've all experienced that, like in the fire service, where the time starts to slow down or speed up, whatever one that it is. You start to get that. You can see your focus going right. And what kind of tools would you say, like in that, without pulling yourself right out of the situation? Right. What would you say?
Well, what I would hope is that we could maybe proactively do some things to keep them from reaching what I call the tipping point with stress. All stress is good. We need to be stressed when we're operating incident scenes. Stress gives us vigilance and helps us to realize that we're vulnerable humans and we could get killed doing this work, and it makes you pay attention to what you're doing. But stress, when it reaches a tipping point and it starts to impact literally biological processes like vision and hearing and creative thinking, resilient problem solving, all of this can be impacted. We want to try to not let it even get there, because once it gets there and all those chemicals are coercing through our system, you can't just bloodlet yourself and let all that out. It's got to work its way out. So we want to try to just keep from getting to that. And probably one of the best ways is tactical breathing. And I'll explain what it is, and then I'll explain why it's so valuable. And the military uses it. Navy SEALs, Delta teams, they're all well versed on the topic of tactical breathing. So when you get stressed, there is a small organ in the brain that senses this rising stress, and then it starts to send out signals, and it sends out the signals, then other organs of the body, adrenal glands on the kidneys, it's not just the organs in the brain, but they'll start to release these various chemicals and hormones and neurotransmitters, mostly designed to give you what the body perceives you need to know to survive in a like fight or flight, being chased by a lion or a well, I'm thinking like a primal primitive saber-tooth tiger. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, right. So the tactical breathing tries to keep that organ from releasing enough information to put you over the tipping point. Now, what makes that organ more active is oxygen. Oxygen is like the fuel for it. So the more you oxygenate it, the more crazy it gets. So what does somebody do when they get overstimulated and overexcited? Is they hyperventilate. You've seen this on, and they just lose their mind. I'm gonna die. And back in the day, I don't know if they still do this because I've been retired from a hot minute. We used to have them breathe into a paper bag, and what that does is breathing in the paper bag is they're rebreathing carbon dioxide. Well, as much as oxygen makes that organ go crazy, carbon dioxide makes that organ calm down. It's like a nice warm blanket that it puts on it. So if we can just ever so slightly keep the carbon dioxide level up and the oxygenation level down, basically the panting type breathing, we can keep that organ from going crazy, which then causes this massive release of all these chemicals and hormones and neurotransmitters. And the tactical breathing is the best known tool for that, which and it's all relative to keeping the brain calm. So you breathe in slowly on a 4 count, hold your breath for a 4 count, breathe out slowly on a 4 count, and then stop breathing for a 4 count. And you do that like 3 times, and you no matter what, you're dealing with some life crisis at home or whatever, you just got an argument with your significant other and you don't want to say what's really on your mind, and try tactical breathing, and just kind of calms you down. And in my breakout session, somebody was talking about some research that they had done with Delta forces and SEAL teams on high-risk entries, and they were able to put biometrics on them, and then biometrics on the people that were back in the command post. And the people at command post had higher blood pressures and higher pulse rates and higher respiration rates than the SEAL teams and the Delta forces, the operators did, because they know how to control stress using tactical breathing. And you can also use some ways of controlling thought processes, like don't always let yourself think about the doom and the gloom. Think of in ways of pathways to success instead of failure. Because if you think you're gonna die, you're gonna get really overwhelmed really quick. Or if you stay focused on the power of positive thinking. What do I need to do to successfully get me out of this situation? You think like pilots, like when the plane is in distress, and you hear these pilots call and say, Tower, this is Delta 4291. We've lost 2 of our engines. We're going to have to ditch into a field. It sounds like they're ordering a pizza.
Sully, they called him, just said, you can find us in the Hudson.
Yeah, we're going to be in the Hudson. That audio is incredible. And I think like if I was commanding that, how would I react? With the proper training, maybe I would react the same way. I'd like to think that in a fire scenario, I might. Well, when I commanded, I often had when we had these really intense incidents, I would have the firefighters say, "Your calm keeps me calm," which is true. In the breakout, I did a demonstration of how one person's stress can be transferred onto another person, and that like if dispatch tells you that you're going to a structure fire with people trapped, you can tell from their voice if you're really going to the real deal.
Yep, sure.
Their stress because it gets transferred onto you. So the more we can keep ourselves physically and mentally calm in our voice, calm in our demeanor, then that helps too to keep our hormones, peptides, neurotransmitters regulated. Because we go ape shit, it goes ape, and that's what we're trying to a conscious calming.
Right. I've actually used tactical breathing, and I used to teach a course up in Canada, R2MR. It was from the military, and it had tactical breathing as part of it. But honestly, I didn't know like the science behind it. I knew that it worked.
Yeah, right.
But I just didn't know why it worked. That's interesting. That's really interesting.
It's powerful.
I think you mentioned something just in that answer that I think is kind of leads us into the question that I was going to ask you originally, which is what for the younger generation of firefighters that are coming along, right? That obviously the more experience you have within the job, potentially the better your situational awareness is going to be. All that kind of rolls back into training, but like if there's some young firefighters that are watching this that are new in their career, what are some tips that you would give them to begin working on that situational awareness? I think everything can come back to say, well, you got to train, right? Because the more you train, the better, the less your brain's going to be freaking out in those stressful environments. But we can't train for every potential eventuality. So, like, do you have any advice that you would want to give to young firefighters to start them down a career path of having good, effective situational awareness and doing the job?
Great question. I think it begins with understanding what situational awareness means. So many times I'll have people say, and I try real hard not to correct them in the moment because they're just trying to share good information. But they'll say situational awareness means paying attention and keeping your head on a swivel. That's about 10% of it.
Right.
We're not that good at either one of those.
Well, and there's reasons. There's explanations as to why we're not, and then tips and tricks and best practices about how to be better on what to pay attention to, and how to maintain big picture awareness when you're fixated on a task and things like that. But I'd say that it starts with becoming a student, not I mean like student, like, you have to invest all your time in it,
Right.
but at least invest enough time to get a basic understanding about what the term situational awareness means, the step processes for how to develop it, and then maybe understand something about, like what I taught in the breakout here, the dirty dozen situational awareness barriers, like 12 ways, the 12 most likely ways it's going to go off the rails for you when you're working in a high risk, high consequence, time compressed, stress filled environment, and you got to make quick and correct decisions.
Right.
Understand those 12 barriers, and if I could just get a young firefighter to understand what SA is and understand those 12 barriers, they would be well on their way to being able to apply that at really every call they go to. Now, the good news for them is all of that is available completely for free, for free on my website. They can either consume it as articles, or they can consume it as a podcast episode that I did, or I talk about what is SA, and another episode where I talk about the 12 barriers. So really all they have to invest is time to learn.
Yeah.
And once they get that foundation, because I've had firefighters that have been in the fire service for 25 and 30 years say to me, I had one guy say it to me this morning in the breakfast line. He says, where was this training when I was a new firefighter?
So that leads me into my question. So all three of us, I'm still currently training battalion chief at my organization. He was the training captain at Cobb County until very recently.
I was division chief of training.
Division chief of training in his organization prior to becoming a deputy. The fire service is very specific, and in most of the organizations I've seen, and we do something like all of us do it the same way. We give a brand new person a task, and then we break that task down into steps. And then we hand them a sheet, and we say, okay, we're going to grade you on getting this task completed, but inside this task, you have all these little tasks. Are we hardwiring task fixation into the job that we do?
Wow.
That was deep.
Did you sleep on that one? That's a good one.
I think he worked all morning on that one.
And is there a better way to do it? Is there a better way to do it? Because to me, it just seems like we are training to be task fixated.
We could be. I'm a strong proponent of best practices, and really one of the best ways to teach best practices is the scripted, here's step one, here's step two, three, four, and then practice that so that they develop mental processes and physical skills around best practices. However, what I'm also a strong proponent of is teaching firefighters how to be resilient problem solvers and critical thinkers. So once they say you get them to where that checklist or process is 10 steps, and they've practiced it, they've memorized it, they can do it with one arm tied behind their back, then what I think we need to do is get better at saying, all right, let's do it. And they're doing it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Stop. Everything has changed. Now what do you do? Because I think what happens is we train the 10-step process, and I see this in the line of duty death reports. Firefighters, when things go off the rail, continue to do what the step processes tell them to do because they have no alternate wiring that says, and here's an exit ramp you can go off of and do something different. That creative thinking of what to do when it's not going, if we could get every fire to behave the way we train,
oh, no kidding.
Life would be wonderful.
Yeah.
But you know that it doesn't. Yeah. So what we have to do is teach the firefighters how to be resilient and how to pivot and how to creatively think their way out of the problem that they're in when that 10-step process just isn't going to work. And some of them, they just freeze. They're like, I don't even know what to do now, because that was never taught. They either continue on with what they were taught because it's programmed, or they just don't know what to do at all.
You know, the point was brought up yesterday that when we go to a drill field and we're going to have live fire evolutions, the only way we practice that is we're going to go inside.
Yeah.
We're moving it. Nobody ever practices to set up a defensive operation.
No. So you just, when you go there, you automatically are
That's your
going
default.
in. That's your default, right?
Yeah.
I saw a video. I used to have it. I don't know where it is now, but it's a police officer at an active shooting incident, and he's shooting, and then he bends over, and he's shooting. He bends over, and what he was doing was he was picking up his brass. That's not bad. Because that's what he trained. How he trained was he was picking up his brass at an active event.
Right.
Because he was going back to his training, and I always use that one for situational awareness, for being cognizant of not getting into those traps that you train and that you practice, and then all of a sudden, you're doing stuff that isn't normal. Right?
We humans are creatures of habit.
Yeah, sure.
And there's nothing that will put us more into habit and automatic mode than stress. Stress just says, okay, follow the playbook. I don't have time to, think creatively. Just follow, and it just follows along on the playbook until the playbook doesn't work, and then you're really in a quagmire. Yeah, so many times I've had the opportunity to watch fire departments train on training grounds, and I'll just watch. And then I get the training officer when it's done and say, I saw your folks did this, and they did this, and they did this. Would they do that on a real fire? Oh, no. We wouldn't do it that way on a real fire.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, yeah, you did. Yeah. You did, and you will, because you just trained it. You just trained it that way.
I'm a squad guy. My background in heavy auto extrication, and I would always see people pushing in the glass with bare gloves into the vehicle because they didn't want to have to clean it up afterwards, right? And then you go, sure as shit, you go to a real call. And that's what they're doing.
Yeah,
on top of the patient.
Yeah, I've had multiple times where I'm out on the drill ground and the crews are there. They're all packed up. They're ready to go in. And the instructor says, "Okay, you guys ready? Yeah, ready. Okay, let's go." And they don't do a 360. So then I'll ask the person running the drill. I said, "Why didn't they do a 360?" "Oh, we don't have all the time to waste to do 360s. We're here to do live fire burns or left-hand searches or whatever the tactical, hands-on skill objective is." And then I say, "Well, if they were at a real fire, would you want them to do a 360?" "Oh, yeah, absolutely, but not at this fire. That doesn't make sense."
Right.
To not.
But situational awareness isn't always.
Yeah, I know.
It isn't always.
I saw that. Yeah. Yeah. You need
Awesome.
signs and fire tape.
We're about to have another one, maybe.
Yeah.
So, talking about that kind of brings up a little bit, not that it has necessarily anything to do with situational awareness, but we've had a lot of conversations about, here at the conference, about hiring practices. And perhaps we're not doing enough problem-solving style testing or evaluations within our hiring practices, so that we're trying to reach out and find those people that may have some form of, maybe they have a little better situational awareness and problem solving, to your point, where if they go through step 1 through 5 and then at step number 6 you go, you can't do it that way anymore, I think that's worth additional conversations.
Well, we started to, when I was with Mississauga Fire, we started a different hiring process, or adding something to the hiring process, and it was, instead of look at people for 2 interviews totaling 45 minutes an hour, we started to have a practical part of it. But it wasn't putting up a ladder or can you swing an axe. It was we basically took survivor games and we had people do it, and that way you get a little bit of a look at them and understand how they work together as a team a little bit better. And it actually gave us a look into how they think, right? Giving them tasks, small party tasks is what the military up north calls them, and we got a look at how they actually think. And then you had a preview of potentially what they could be like, and we found that our it didn't get rid of all our problem children that you would hire, but it gave you, I think it gave us a better candidate, and it gave us a look at what people were really like, and I think that was a little bit of looking at their situational awareness, understanding how they think a little bit.
Yeah, I like that.
And
I like that.
It worked really well. I had somebody go, "Well, you're designing these things. Did you go to school for that?" And I'm like, "No." And they're like, "Oh, how do you know how to do that?" I go, "Well, you just have them do something, and you're just observing them."
Yeah.
Right? And it was, we'd have a pipe, the communication things where you have like a radio and you put, we had a pipe, a plumber's nightmare, right? And then on the other side, they have a box of pipe. And they have to communicate back and forth and put it together.
Yeah.
Right? And it just gave us an insight onto people's thinking, right?
Yeah.
And their situational awareness.
Yeah.
And how they can communicate. And I think if we can do that, I think we're going to be a better fire service for it. I think if we can change those things, right?
That's a pretty smart approach.
Yeah.
I like that.
It worked out well for us.
Yeah.
So what is the future of your training? Like, how do you see, you've got books, you've got websites, you're going around. Is there something that you're working on that is going to be like innovative, like, I don't know, AI or something?
Hey, funny you would bring that up. Here at the conference, I attended Kevin Sofin's program talking about how to integrate AI into the fire service, and I wasn't exactly sure what the program was going to be. But what happened was we started with a problem that we wanted to have solved, and by the end of that session, we had an app that was developed in real time, right there, right on the screen, right in front of our very eyes, that would be a tool that could be used for that particular problem. Well, I have one of my master instructors here, Mike Richardson, and we were just chatting this morning at breakfast about what could we do to create an app for the fire service that would allow them to do some kind of situational awareness assessment of their folks to see if they had, where are they at as far as if not skills, at least understanding about, do you even understand that you can go deaf or go blind or task fixate and then provide that to a fire department that they could poll their people and then see where their opportunities lay. Now they talk about a new idea. We're talking about conversation we just had this morning about integrating AI into it. I'm working with FDSOA to possibly have a situational awareness component in the training that FDSOA provides, and maybe even partnering so that the FDSOA becomes kind of like a co-sponsor of my programs and puts it out as one of their programs, and that could be either our online academy, or it could be live sessions, but it would be a way to attract the audience. Your audience is a unique, safety-focused, best practices type of audience that could really take a topic like that and champion it in their organization.
So we had a long meeting on Sunday, the board and then the CEO, management team, everybody kind of sitting in the same room, and this was a conversation we had. I was just appointed the chair position, and kind of vision moving forward. Recently launched our online ISO, looking at moving to an online HSO, and the question was raised was like, okay, what does safety in the fire service really look like? Is it 2 certifications and then you're done? Because really, for years, that's kind of where we had that market, and we like that market, but we decided that we've got to find places, leadership tracks. What else did we talk about? Possibly driver-operator things. Expanding what we do with EVT. I think that situational awareness type offerings fit so well into our space, and because everybody wants to be the go-to, and that's our goal for this association. Is when you talk about anything that might affect firefighter safety, that FDSOA has something to give, and I think situational awareness fits right into that space. I'm excited to hear that.
Yeah,
for sure.
And I've never directly partnered with an organization or an association, so that's exciting for me to kind of hitch my wagon to a successful organization like FDSOA And I am completely confident that will expose my topic to a new audience. Even like here at the conference, I keynoted I think here like 2 years ago.
2 years ago, yeah.
But a lot of the people that are here this year weren't even here 2 years ago.
That's right.
I asked them in the breakout. I said, "How many of you were at the keynote 2 years ago?" And I had like 25 people in the breakout session, and like 3 hands went up. Out of the 25, it was like, okay, it's 22 of these people, weren't here 2 years ago. So
that
we're
keynote offering you did 2 years ago, so fun. That's I've seen you speak multiple times, and that one I was like, golly, man.
That was the first time I ever did that.
Really?
Ever?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That was cool.
As a keynote, I do it in a full day program.
Right.
But as a keynote, and I'm rolling the dice here. It's either going to come off well, or they're going to be booing me off the stage.
There was no booing.
Oh, you lied about that, did you?
Yeah.
Awesome.
But so you're attracting an audience of new safety-oriented leaders in the fire service, and obviously it's there's been some turnover, or departments are expanding their safety officer
for sure.
cadre, because you're getting these new people coming here. The conference has a fantastic turnout of safety officers from all over, and
You say we had somebody from Germany here?
Yeah, Germany,
Alaska, Hawaii.
Hawaii.
I mean,
even Canadians. You beat me to it.
Well, my big talking point, if you've ever sat in one of my ISO classes, I don't talk about, well, if it's not safe, like back off. I'm not a risk-averse person. What I talk about is risk versus benefit, and not being arbitrarily just willing to do anything. Like, let's look at it.
Yeah.
And I think situational awareness fits. You have to be aware of what you're looking at in order to make those judgment calls. And
it's all-encompassing.
Yeah,
you can't do that,
and that's our
without
narrative
good
right now.
situation.
So that's exciting. I'm excited to talk about that.
Yeah,
for sure.
So that might be something new on the horizon that
I like that.
that people can expect maybe within this year. Then I even talked with Mike Richardson this morning about the possibility of getting like a pro board accreditation for that topic, which will then strengthen our partnership if that get
sure.
And again, it's just brainstorming, so I can't tell people that that's going to happen. But if we could do that, then we even have something that is maybe more attractive to an audience.
Well, like my big buddy from Texas likes to say, the juice is worth the squeeze on.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like that's going to have such an impact on the fire service and what we're all here for, which is obviously to make the fire service a safer place. That, I mean, if there's work we have to do to try and help facilitate that, by all means. I mean, that's what this is about.
This Mike Richardson person that you're speaking of, like, is he a qualified guy? How do we? Have we ever met this guy?
No, I met him. He was out on the street with a sign that said "We'll work for food," and I picked him up and gave him a ride here.
And your luck would have it. He's like the most super qualified guy.
His luck would have it. He was a NIOSH investigator and a 30-year firefighter, and it's like, wow, he's just down on his luck. I'll see what I can do to help him. And
so that's the beautiful part. We're starting to kind of fill up here. So
Yeah.
we'll kind of, and I think that the most beautiful thing that I've seen happening this week is the strengthening of these partnerships that we have. Seeing new sponsors that are invested into me going home at the end of the day, and him outliving his actuarial study, and you getting your pension, and all the things, rather than just it's not just about life or death in the moment. It's about what steps, right?
Yep.
What steps
for sure.
can we take over the course of a career?
Yeah, the long run.
The long run.
Yeah.
And that's it's so good to see that happening, and it's happening inside this organization. You're a great partner of ours. We know that you support us, and we certainly support you. It has been awesome to sit down and talk with you.
Yeah, thank you.
It's amazing. I always look at it, when you're on the trucks, you're helping those people in your district or your area, 1/4 of the time time or however many shifts you have. And then when you get into training, now you're helping the whole municipality, right, and all the people that visit it. But what you're doing and what we hope to do is like impact the fire service on a global scale.
Absolutely.
And I don't mean global like worldwide, but
Oh man, we're going worldwide.
Worldwide.
World domination.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like it's just you're doing good work, and
Thank you.
I'm
For sure.
proud to sit and chat with you for a little bit.
Thank you guys for inviting me to sit down and
Well,
talk with you.
we greatly appreciate having this opportunity to sit down and pick your brain, so to speak. Kind of see what I did there? Couldn't pass it up. Yeah, so thank you so very
Yeah.
much for being here with us.
Thank
man.
you.
Thank you. This has been fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank